Hell no. The answer is unequivocally, absolutely, and without question, no. The avoidant partner is not worth your time, energy, emotional investment, or precious life force. This isn't about being harsh or judgmental. This is about radical self-love and protecting your peace at all costs. You deserve so much more than someone who treats emotional intimacy like a contagious disease and your love like an inconvenience. The staggering hypocrisy of avoidant behavior. Perhaps the most infuriating aspect of dealing with avoidant partners is their breathtaking hypocrisy. They demand emotional safety and understanding for their limitations while providing neither to their partners. They expect patience for their inability to communicate while becoming frustrated when their partners express emotional needs. They want the benefits of relationship security while refusing to provide the emotional investment that creates that security. Avoidants routinely expect their partners to be emotional mind readers, picking up on subtle cues and unspoken needs, while simultaneously criticizing their partners for wanting clear communication. They demand accommodation for their fear of vulnerability while showing no accommodation for their partner's need for emotional connection. They want to receive love without having to give it, security without having to create it, and understanding without having to reciprocate it. The hypocrisy extends to their relationship expectations. They want partners who are independent enough not to need emotional support, but available enough to provide it when they occasionally want it. They want someone who won't pressure them for commitment while being committed enough to stick around through their emotional unavailability. They want the freedom to withdraw without consequences while expecting their partners to remain consistently available for their return. Most hypocritically, they position themselves as the reasonable ones in the relationship while painting their partners as emotional, demanding, or needy for wanting basic relationship necessities. They frame their emotional limitations as maturity and their partner's emotional needs as dysfunction. They rewrite reality to make their deficits appear as strengths and their partner's strengths appear as weaknesses. This hypocrisy is particularly damaging because it makes their partners question their own perceptions and needs. When someone consistently frames your reasonable requests for emotional intimacy as excessive demands while presenting their emotional withholding as healthy boundaries, you begin to doubt your own judgment about what constitutes normal relationship behavior. The victim mindset that destroys accountability. Avoidant partners excel at positioning themselves as victims of their past, their circumstances, or their partner's emotional needs, rather than taking responsibility for their impact on others. They use their childhood wounds as permanent excuses for their inability to show up emotionally, their past relationships as justification for their current unavailability, and their partner's reactions to their behavior as evidence that their partner is the problem. This victim mindset allows them to avoid accountability for the emotional damage they cause while maintaining their self-image as someone who's simply protecting themselves. They're not emotionally abusive, they're just scared. They're not withholding affection, they're just independent. They're not causing their partner anxiety. Their partner is just too sensitive. This reframing prevents them from examining their own behavior and its impact on others. The victim mindset becomes particularly toxic when they use it to justify treating their partners poorly. Your emotional reactions to their unavailability become evidence of your dysfunction rather than natural responses to inadequate treatment. Your requests for more connection become proof that you're demanding rather than reasonable attempts to get your needs met. Your frustration with their inconsistency becomes validation that you're the unstable one in the relationship. They position their emotional limitations as things that happen to them rather than choices they make. They're not choosing to avoid vulnerability. They can't help it. They're not deciding to withhold affection. It's just their nature. They're not selecting emotional distance. It's simply how they're wired. This victimhood narrative absolves them of responsibility for growth and change while placing the burden of accommodation entirely on their partners. This mindset is fundamentally selfish because it prioritizes their comfort over their partner's well-being while refusing to acknowledge this prioritization. They want sympathy for their struggles while showing no empathy for the struggles they create for others. They want understanding for their limitations while demonstrating no understanding for their partner's needs. The emotional terrorism they inflict. The impact of avoidant behavior on their partners constitutes a form of emotional terrorism, systematic attacks on their partner's emotional security designed to maintain control while avoiding accountability through inconsistent behavior, emotional withholding, and gaslighting. They create environments where their partners live in constant fear of abandonment while being told they're too sensitive for feeling afraid. Their hot and cold behavior creates trauma bonding patterns that are psychologically identical to abuse cycles. The intermittent reinforcement of affection, followed by withdrawal, creates addictive neurochemical responses that make their partners emotionally dependent on their inconsistent availability. This isn't accidental, it's the natural result of their self-serving behavior patterns. The emotional terrorism extends to making their partners responsible for managing their discomfort with intimacy. If their partner expresses emotional needs, they withdraw, teaching their partner to minimize their own needs to maintain connection. If their partner stops pursuing, they panic and increase attention, teaching their partner that emotional availability is contingent on their behavior. This manipulation creates partners who lose themselves trying to manage someone else's emotional limitations. They inflict emotional terrorism through their refusal to provide the emotional security that healthy relationships require. Their partners live in constant uncertainty about where they stand, whether the relationship will continue, and what behaviors might trigger another withdrawal. This uncertainty creates chronic anxiety and hypervigilance that damages their partner's mental health and ability to function in other areas of life. The gaslighting component of their emotional terrorism is particularly destructive. They make their partners question their own perceptions, needs, and emotional reactions by consistently framing reasonable requests as excessive demands and natural responses to poor treatment as emotional instability. This systematic undermining of their partner's reality creates self-doubt that can last years beyond the relationship. The damage they cause to their partners. The psychological damage inflicted by avoidant partners often takes years to heal and affects their partner's ability to trust, love, and feel secure in future relationships. Partners of avoidance frequently develop anxiety disorders, depression, and complex trauma responses from living in emotionally unpredictable environments where their needs are consistently minimized or ignored. The constant emotional uncertainty creates hypervigilance that becomes second nature. Partners learn to monitor their avoidance moods, analyze their behavior for signs of withdrawal, and modify their own behavior to maintain connection. This hypervigilance doesn't disappear when the relationship ends. It becomes a trauma response that affects future relationships and overall quality of life. The erosion of self-worth is perhaps the most devastating damage. After months or years of being told that their emotional needs are excessive, their desire for intimacy is needy, and their reactions to poor treatment are overreactions, partners begin to believe these characterizations. They lose touch with their own worth and begin to accept treatment that healthy individuals would immediately reject. Partners of avoidance often develop codependent patterns that persist long after the relationship ends. They learn to prioritize others' comfort over their own needs, to accept minimal effort as sufficient, and to be grateful for basic relationship necessities. These patterns make them vulnerable to future relationships with emotionally unavailable people. The damage extends to their ability to recognize healthy love when it's offered. After adapting to emotional scraps and inconsistent affection, genuine emotional availability can feel overwhelming or suspicious. They may sabotage healthy relationships because consistent love feels foreign after being trained to expect emotional starvation. Your peace is not negotiable. Your inner peace is the most valuable asset you possess, and anyone who consistently disrupts it doesn't deserve access to your life. Avoidant partners are peace destroyers by nature. They create chaos through inconsistency, anxiety through emotional unavailability, and confusion through their hot and cold behavior patterns. Why would you voluntarily invite this disruption into your sanctuary? Peace means waking up without wondering where you stand with your partner. Peace means expressing your needs without fear of triggering their withdrawal. Peace means feeling secure in someone's affection instead of constantly analyzing their behavior for signs of care. Avoidant partners make peace impossible because their entire attachment system is built on creating emotional distance and uncertainty. You have worked too hard on yourself, your healing, and your emotional well-being to hand it over to someone who will systematically dismantle it through their inability to show up emotionally. Your peace is not a sacrifice you make for love, it's a boundary you maintain because you love yourself enough to protect what matters most. The constant state of hypervigilance that comes with loving an avoidant person is the antithesis of peace. You find yourself monitoring their moods, analyzing their responses, and walking on emotional eggshells to avoid triggering their withdrawal. This is not love. This is emotional imprisonment disguised as romance. Stop accepting emotional breadcrumbs. You are not a charity case begging for emotional scraps from someone who should be giving you their full attention and affection. Yet with avoidant partners, you find yourself grateful for the bare minimum, a text message, a moment of vulnerability, a night when they seem present. This gratitude for breadcrumbs is a betrayal of your own worth and a clear sign that you've lost sight of what you actually deserve. Emotional breadcrumbs are not kindness, they're manipulation. When someone gives you just enough attention to keep you hoping while withholding enough to keep you insecure, they're not being generous, they're being cruel. They're training you to accept less and be grateful for it, slowly eroding your standards until you believe their minimal effort is all you're worth. You deserve someone who gives you the full meal, not someone who parcels out attention like it's a limited resource they need to ration. You deserve someone who shows up consistently, communicates openly, and treats your emotional needs as important rather than burdensome. Settling for breadcrumbs when you deserve a feast is an act of self-abandonment. The energy you spend being grateful for their minimal efforts could be invested in someone who doesn't make you work so hard for basic relationship necessities. Stop celebrating their occasional emotional availability like it's a miracle. It should be the baseline, not the exception. Your emotional labor is too precious to waste. The amount of emotional labor required to maintain a relationship with an avoidant partner is astronomical and completely one-sided. You become the relationship manager, the emotional translator, the communication facilitator, and the intimacy creator while they contribute what exactly? Their physical presence doesn't count as emotional contribution when their heart and mind remain locked away. You spend endless energy trying to decode their feelings, manage their comfort level with intimacy, and create emotional safety for someone who refuses to reciprocate. You invest in understanding their attachment patterns, accommodating their emotional limitations, and hoping your patience will eventually be rewarded. This is emotional labor that generates no return on investment. Your emotional energy is finite and sacred. Every moment you spend trying to connect with someone who actively resists connection is a moment stolen from your own growth, healing, and happiness. Every conversation you have trying to understand why they can't express their feelings is a conversation you could have with someone who communicates openly and honestly. The mental gymnastics required to rationalize their behavior, excuse their emotional unavailability, and maintain hope for change is exhausting your emotional resources. You're spending your emotional wealth on someone who's emotionally bankrupt and has no plans to improve their financial situation. You're not a rehabilitation center. You are not responsible for healing someone else's attachment wounds, fixing their emotional limitations, or teaching them how to love. Yet with avoidant partners, you often find yourself playing therapist, emotional coach, and patient teacher, hoping your love will heal whatever broke them. This is not your job, and it's not possible anyway. Healing attachment wounds requires professional help, personal commitment, and years of inner work that the individual must choose for themselves. Your love, no matter how pure and patient, cannot substitute for their personal responsibility to address their emotional limitations. You cannot love someone into emotional health any more than you can love someone into sobriety. Every moment you spend trying to fix them is a moment you're not investing in your own growth and healing. You've become so focused on their emotional development that you've neglected your own. This codependent dynamic serves no one and prevents both of you from doing the individual work necessary for healthy relationships. Stop making excuses for their inability to show up emotionally, their childhood wounds, their past relationships, their fear of vulnerability. None of these are your responsibility to heal or accommodate. You deserve someone who has already done their healing work or is actively committed to it, not someone who expects you to provide therapy disguised as love. Life is too short for emotional starvation. You have a limited number of years on this planet, and spending them emotionally starved while someone else controls the emotional temperature of your relationship is a tragic waste of your precious life. Every day you spend hoping they'll become emotionally available is a day you could spend with someone who already is. Emotional starvation feels normal when you've been in it long enough, but it's not sustainable or healthy. You start to believe that minimal emotional connection is better than being alone, that inconsistent affection is better than no affection. This is survival thinking, not thriving thinking. You deserve to thrive emotionally, not just survive. The years you spend waiting for an avoidant partner to feel safe enough to love you fully are years you'll never get back. While you're investing in their potential, life is passing you by. Opportunities for genuine love, deep connection, and mutual emotional investment are being missed because you're committed to someone who may never be capable of reciprocating your investment. Your youth, energy, and capacity for love are not renewable resources. Don't waste them on someone who treats them as optional extras rather than precious gifts. Don't let your prime years be consumed by someone who makes you question your worth instead of celebrating it. The opportunity cost is enormous. Every moment you spend with an emotionally unavailable person is a moment you're not available for someone who could actually love you the way you deserve. The opportunity cost of staying with an avoidant partner is astronomical. You're potentially missing out on the love of your life because you're committed to someone who can't or won't love you fully. While you're analyzing their mixed signals and hoping for change, someone else who could adore you completely might enter and exit your life without you noticing. While you're accommodating their need for emotional distance, you could be building emotional intimacy with someone who craves the same depth of connection you do. The energy you invest in trying to make an incompatible relationship work could be invested in personal growth, career advancement, friendships, hobbies, or finding someone who's actually compatible with your emotional needs. You're sacrificing your entire life's potential for someone who gives you a fraction of what healthy love looks like. Consider what your life could look like if you redirected all the energy you spend managing their emotional limitations toward building a life with someone who enhances rather than drains your emotional well-being. The opportunity cost isn't just romantic, it's everything else you could be experiencing if you weren't emotionally imprisoned by someone's limitations. You deserve enthusiastic love. You deserve someone who is excited to love you, not someone who treats loving you like a chore they occasionally complete. You deserve someone who chooses you eagerly every day, not someone who reluctantly tolerates your presence while maintaining emotional distance. You deserve enthusiastic, wholehearted, unreserved love. Avoidant partners Make love feel like something they occasionally endure rather than something they actively choose and celebrate. Their emotional availability feels like a favor they occasionally grant rather than a natural expression of their feelings for you. This isn't love, this is someone allowing you to love them while contributing minimal effort themselves. Enthusiastic love means someone who can't wait to see you, who prioritizes your emotional needs, who communicates openly about their feelings, and who creates emotional intimacy rather than resisting it. Enthusiastic love means someone who sees your emotional needs as important rather than burdensome, who works to meet them rather than expecting you to minimize them. Stop accepting reluctant affection from someone who should be grateful to have you. Stop settling for someone who makes love feel like hard work instead of natural joy. You deserve someone who loves you so obviously and consistently that you never have to question it. Your standards are not too high. The gaslighting that comes with dating avoidant partners often convinces you that your needs for emotional intimacy, consistency, and genuine partnership are excessive or unrealistic. They're not. Your standards for basic emotional availability are not too high. Their capacity for emotional connection is too low. Wanting someone who can express their feelings, commit to the relationship, and prioritize your emotional needs alongside their own isn't asking too much. It's asking for the minimum requirements of healthy partnership. If someone makes you feel demanding for wanting basic emotional connection, they're not the right person for you. Your need for emotional security, consistent affection, and genuine intimacy reflects your emotional maturity and readiness for real partnership, not emotional neediness or excessive expectations. Don't let someone who's incapable of meeting normal relationship requirements convince you that your standards are the problem. Maintain your standards fiercely. They exist to protect you from settling for relationships that don't serve your highest good. The right person won't make you feel like your emotional needs are too much. They'll appreciate having a partner who knows what healthy love looks like and insists on creating it together. Choose yourself every single time. At the end of the day, the choice is simple. Choose the avoidant partner who disrupts your peace, drains your energy, and makes you question your worth. Or choose yourself, your healing, your growth, and your happiness. The answer should be obvious, but somehow we convince ourselves that love means sacrificing our well-being for someone else's comfort. Choosing yourself means walking away from anyone who consistently makes you feel anxious, undervalued, or emotionally neglected. Choosing yourself means refusing to accept love that feels like work instead of joy. Choosing yourself means prioritizing your peace over their potential, your reality over their promises, and your well-being over their emotional limitations. Self-love isn't selfish, it's survival. It's recognizing that you deserve to be loved the way you love others, that you deserve emotional partnership rather than one-sided investment, and that you deserve peace rather than constant emotional chaos. Choosing yourself is choosing to believe you're worth more than what avoidant partners can offer. The avoidant partner will never be worth sacrificing your peace, your standards, your emotional well-being, or your precious life energy. Choose yourself, choose peace, choose love that feels like coming home instead of love that feels like trying to break into a house where you're not welcome. You deserve so much more. And more is out there waiting for you the moment you stop settling for less.